if somebody watches this and they're still like that, this lets you know that they're not sincere. They're not even to be dealt with because it can't be ignored. And so we're gonna shut that down, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. Just make sure you click like and share. We'll go ahead and get started now. Check this out. I appreciate you guys for coming out. Don't just watch this though. Click that share button. Okay, help get this information out there. And just hang on 1 second. I'm gonna. All right. Let me do something for you real quick. I need to bring something up on the screen for you. But like I said, just stay here. Share this and click like. That's it. That's all I need you to do. Just click like and share. Okay, don't just watch this. Make sure you hit the share button at least twice. Okay, and that's it. All right. Okay, so like I was saying, we had a great celebration for the prophet, man. It was just wonderful. I really appreciate the Moors in Columbus for standing up, for coming out. Appreciate y'all, all the entire area, Dayton, Akron, everyone in Columbus, all of that. Appreciate y'all. Much love to the Moors out there. Now, what we're going to talk about today, if you see this topic, it just says on the screen, it says he delivered us from darkness, but who turned out the lights? Okay. Now, the reason why we're using this terminology in this video is because this is the same terminology that Prophet Noble Drew Ali used. Okay? The same terminology that he used. But also, okay, if you look, up at this guy, this European dude who's on here, this is the same terminology that people like that were using. Okay? All right? And they're using this for a reason. And we're going to talk about what they're speaking on. Okay, so it's saying who delivered us from darkness. So we're insinuating that we're in the dark. Our people have been in the dark. Okay, somebody took or removed the light or cut off the lights. And as you can see, this guy is wearing a fez. Okay, he's a Shriner. The fez usually they have Moorish or Islamic terms on them, Egyptian terms on them. You can see the guy's got on an Egyptian tie. He's got Mayat. He's got the eye, the all-seeing eye, the eye of Horus. He's got the Ankh on there. Okay, and so you see him on here, he's just laughing, right? All of these are our symbols. This is our national headdress, but we're going to get into that. We're going to show you why. Okay, so for him to be doing that, he's blatantly showing this in your face, like kind of lampooning you, kind of clowning you, who you really are. Right? And so once again, there's some people who clown this and they can make jokes and make, real stupid, dumbed down jokes to dumb down the whole conversation so that they can attack Moors. But it's just like really sad for them to do this because all of this is ours and it's only yours because you're a Moor. All right. And so for him to be wearing this national headdress of the Moors and then he's got the Egyptian tie on, he's laughing, he's clowning you. Okay. So going to this next slide, this quote is actually from a book by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, The Secrets of Freemasonry. Okay, and the quote is from Henry Berry, who was actually speaking in the Virginia House of Delegates. Okay, in 1832, and they're debating on slavery. They're debating on the abolition of slavery. So in 1832 in the Virginia House of Delegates, and this is in the book by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but this quote is real. You can go, this isn't like made up or anything. You can go look this up on your own. This was recorded in history. Okay, so it says they're describing a situation that existed at that time in many parts of the South. Henry Berry is saying, we have as far as possible closed every avenue by which light may enter the slave's mind. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would then be on the level with the beast of the field, and we should be safe. Okay, so I'm gonna say that again because this is not a joke. He's standing here in the Virginia House of Delegates. Okay, so he's in there with other congressmen. Okay, other people who are lawmakers, and he's saying we have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter the slave's mind. But when he's talking about slaves, they're not referring to Europeans. They're referring to the so-called Negro. All right. Okay, and they're making a case for, for the abolition of slavery. We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter the slave's mind. So you could substitute slave with Negro. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would then be on the level with the beast of the field, and we should be safe. Okay, the above, and then to finish this from the book, the commentary that's on here. Okay, you have to remember the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a high-ranking Freemason. He's breaking this down. He's saying the above quote is not only chosen to testify the degree to which this government or its founding fathers of the country went to kill the capacity to be educated, but it also shows that whoever the speaker was talking to, okay, in addition to himself, he used jargon or terminology common to men of higher knowledge. Men of higher knowledge use the term light. Okay? Men like this use the term light to describe knowledge not common to the common man. Okay, so they're speaking in code. All right, they're speaking in code. When they say light, they're not just talking about turning off light bulbs. Okay, so they're describing knowledge not common to the common man, esoteric knowledge, and knowledge of who you are. Many of the founding fathers of this country were and still are high degree Masons and Shriners. They have sworn oaths not to reveal what they call secrets. It just so happens that the secrets they are bound by oaths to keep secret just happen to be the truths to set you and I free from our grave of ignorance. In the above passage, they weren't voting or deliberating on whether or not the truth was going to be revealed. They were deliberating on how to destroy our capacity to see light at all, whatever. Okay, and the biggest secret is the fact that you are a Moor. Okay, the Moors were the caretakers of the knowledge and wisdom from ancient Egypt. All right, but we'll get into that. I'm not making this up. You got some people, like I said, who could try to attack this, but they're wrong. It's complete fallacy. Any true scholarship would destroy that utterly. Like you can't even go that route. Okay, so to destroy your capacity to see the light, this is what they're debating. They're talking about. They've already cut off light by putting you into a box that they created for you. They created the label Negro, right? They created that. That's not what you are. It's not what your ancestors called you. So also, this is from Moorish literature, Drew Ali in Time, the cutting off of your light. In 1774, your light was cut off from the ancient Moors, and that's why Allah sent us a prophet in 1886 to prepare the light that was out. In 1925, the prophet said, I have mended the broken wires and have connected them with the higher powers. So come on, Asiatics, don't you want to go? Okay? So the prophet spoke about this. All right, he used the same terminology. This is also from a divine warning by the prophet for the nations, which is also important, especially if you already claim to be a Moor. It's important for you to actually study the prophet, to really understand what he brought. It's not good enough just to hear what people are saying on YouTube, to read stuff from RV Bay publications, and no knock to that or anything. I'm not even knocking it. I'm just saying it's not good enough. And like, if they're real, genuine people, they would tell you that themselves. They would be like, don't study what we have. Go and learn what the prophet brought, And so you have to get this stuff so that you truly understand what we're dealing with. It's deep. Okay, so from Divine One, and these are just quotes from it. It's not the whole thing. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render to you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Now he's saying this, but what happened in 1832? He's saying go to the people in city hall, the officials in your government. They'll be glad to see you bring me see me bring you out of darkness into light. But what do we have? We have officials in government, in the Virginia House of Delegates, talking about how they've already, cut you off from the light. They're debating about extinguishing the capacity to even see the light. So once again, bringing this back to what the prophet's saying, he's speaking in he's using the same terminology that they're using. Okay, so this is not made up. Okay, and so the capacity for you to see the light, they've cut you off. You don't know that you're Moors. All right. And he's speaking, he's saying the same thing. To go further in the divine warning, says, so I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America. Because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding, they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. Okay? So without knowing, your connection to divinity, right? Knowing who you truly are, you've fallen into utter darkness. All right? And there's not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And once again, that's from the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. But with this, he's not placing the blame outside of us for the condition that we suffer, especially now, because there's really no excuse for us to still cling to the labels that they created. Some people will make the argument for black, like, oh, triple blackness, the universe is triple blackness, and it's all of these things and reasons why. They say, well, the ancient Egyptians called themselves Cometians. It was Kemet, that means black, so they were calling themselves the blacks. But that's not even good enough, because it's like ancient Egypt was ta-meri, ta-meru, which can still be tied to Moors. Okay, and maybe you could speak on that in another video. But no one was calling themselves black. All right, we had nations, we had different governments, we had all types of things going on, but we were not black people. This is something that they created. They created the Negro label. They wrote books. There's several books like A Negro Beast or In the Image of God, where they go in trying to scientifically and from a religious perspective create the case for how this Negro is like quasi-human. It's like the missing link. It's not truly human. It's like a beast of the field. Okay, and so they created this label. It wasn't you. You can't be emotional about that. That was, from a non-emotional standpoint, this is what they did. Okay, and then they made it hard on people to claim something else, to claim their own heritage and their tribal ties and things like that. So they boxed us in. Okay, cut you off from your divinity. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the true tie as a Moor, how that ties you into this land and internationally, right? They cut you off from that. Okay, and so Negro evolved because they had to stay ahead of the curve. Every 25, 30 years, maybe even sometimes, they had to change the name because we're evolving. And so they have to keep ahead of the curve. So what happened? After calling us Negro for decades, right, it started to evolve into colored. That didn't even last that long, right? And for a while, it was Negro and colored. And you still have the NAACP, that's the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, right? And so now today, you wouldn't even think of calling someone Negro or colored. That's offensive, right? Right? But, it evolved. It went from Negro to colored. And you could look, you see the evidence is still here, right? They got pictures and videos of the colored and all this stuff from the civil rights movement. So we were actually being called colored, and we even started calling ourselves that, right, going along with it. And if you can talk to people who were adults in the 60s and 50s, okay, because colored wasn't going to last long. They started to move it towards black, the new label. Okay, you talk to people who were grown-ups back then, they will let you know that black was an insult. People who were in their 20s or whatever in the 50s and 60s, they can tell you that black was an insult. People were not going along with that. They had to be eased into it, mind programming to get us to accept that. And so we started to accept black, and then it eased into Afro-American. Now it's African-American. And so we still use two terms, whatever they put on it. So it's still black and African-American. These are still, they all mean the same thing. They all denote to the same thing: Negro, colored, black, African-American. These are all things that we didn't define for ourselves. They just got people from our community to help push the agenda. Okay? And they slapped it on us, but they all denote to the same thing. They all cut you off from the light. People who would want to make that argument just black, you want to just hold on to it. You love it because it's what the oppressors, the Europeans, put on you. And you've been brainwashed. No matter how smart you think you are, you've been brainwashed to love it and accept it. So you can't really fight for it because it's keeping you from the true light. It's keeping you cut off from the light of who you are. Okay? And so, just going back to what the prophet was saying, he was letting you know, you can speak to men in government. They know this. Okay? And there's actually evidence that's been recorded in history. I mean, if you really think about this conversation with this Henry Berry in the Virginia House of Delegates, it's like, why are lawmakers talking about cutting off the light, keeping the light from entering the mind of the Negro? Why is this being discussed in government? Okay, this is on the record in history. You can go and find this yourself. It makes no sense if you don't understand what's really going on. There's more to the picture, okay? Far more to the picture, okay? So what I am going to show you is just a little bit from the book, What Your History Books Failed to Tell You, by the Sheikh Azim Hopkins Bey, where he was allegedly in the First Continental Congress in 1774, right? He was there was a debate, on how to make this slavery thing be something that would last forever, right? When they're creating these labels that they're going to box you into, right? So in 1774, First Continental Congress was in Philadelphia, Shechem, Maxim. There's a quote allegedly where he said, if we would agree to take the fezzes and turbans off the Moors' head, remove the sandals from their feet, basically, they won't know who they are. Their children won't know who they are. And these labels, will be what they claim, and that's going to keep them enslaved. If we can get this stuff away from them, their true culture, their true connection to who they are, they'll stay enslaved. Okay, and so this quote allegedly came from the minutes from the First Continental Congress at the Odd Fellows Convention. All right, and you had all the different representatives from the European colonies. They all meet there, and with this quote, it's iffy. It sounds incredible because you cannot find it anywhere, right? The minutes from those first meetings from 1774, they're not available. I think they published them in 1821, and then it disappeared. It got scraped out, right? So that sounds incredible if you didn't hear about what actually is on the record that we can see. When you see this thing with Henry Berry actually talking about cutting off the light, keeping it from entering the Negro's mind, the slave's mind, that makes no sense. Now, when you put it into the proper perspective, it's easy to see that, yeah, this did take place in 1774. They did convene. You're a big deal. You're a bigger deal maybe than you realize. It was all about cutting off the Moors from who they were. Why? This is your land. Okay? You don't know this is your land. You have people that look like us who were forced to walk to Oklahoma. They called it the Trail of Tears. You may have heard about it in school, but of course, you're thinking these are like European-looking people with straight black hair, right? These were people who look like us. Some were getting picked off and sold to different states with paperwork saying they're a Negro, right? And this is one of the ways they did it, taking children, sending them off, just doing it like that, okay, and completely making up an origin for you, okay, which is what happens when you don't define yourself, okay? And, just the fact that we have the guy, Henry Berry, on the record in the Virginia House of Delegates, debating about cutting the Negro off from the light, and that's actually history. Of course, they don't teach you this in school, right? Of course, that no one else is going to tell you about this, but just the fact that this is on the record, and this is the same terminology, okay? Anyone who is an actual mystical thinker, student of the occult, an adept mind, you know, would know that this is true. This is the message. This is what the light is, the true knowledge of who you are, your connection to divinity, okay? All right, and so these are terms that will go over a lot of people's heads, but this is real. And they're talking about doing this to the Negro. Why are they doing this in government? Okay? Why is this even happening? Okay, so without the true knowledge, without the Moorish perspective, you will be completely in the dark. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, I don't care how smart some people are. If they can't get this, they don't have, you know, they don't really have the key, you know, the key to get us out of this mess. All right, and so once again, you know, it's just insane that they were actually discussing this. It's on the record. This is not a rumor at all. Okay? And once again, you know, I love that book. The book Secrets of Freemasonry is by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's really short, but I love that because he gave you some insight on that quote for those who, you know, haven't really studied the occult or esoteric, anything, you know, that's hidden from the common man. They wouldn't know what is being done in that description of that quote. You would just see the quote about them talking about cutting off the light from the slave's mind. It might make you angry, right? Get you emotional. And that's something that our people do a lot, right? Get angry, emotional, want to riot, want to protest, right? Things that bring no progress, okay? Don't really change anything. But you have to think analytically, or you just have to think deeper. You have to be able to read between the lines and understand what's really taking place, okay, without getting upset. And so this is the main thing, okay? Moorish Americans are the secret, okay? And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're the secret, okay? The whole shrine of, you know, mystical Freemasonry is built around Atlantis rising again, America rising again.
It's
Atlantis
not a
is in
coincidence
America.
that when you look at the Holy Quran,
you can see this whole video on the channel.
You have that same symbol in the circle 7, right? Y'all see that? You see the shadow on the pyramid when you turn it down, right? Right? That's right. So that's the circle 7 right there, right? It's in your face. And then the Moors, you know, I don't have my fez on, but fez, right? So we got the fez on, and you Shriners wearing that fez with your tassel pinned down because yours can't spin freely. Okay, some of you might try to act like that's not.
Yeah, some will try to act like that's not the case, but it is the case. There's not really any ifs, ands, or buts about that. And with this right here, this video is taken from an actual documentary where they're interviewing Freemasons and they're talking about the secrets of Freemasonry or the mystical side of Freemasonry. They're talking about speculative and operative. Okay, and in that video, they're inside a lodge, and what do you have right there, like on the roof of the lodge, on the ceiling? Okay, in the painting, you can. For those that don't know, this red flag that's up here, this is the Moroccan flag. Okay, with the 5-pointed green star. Okay, so right there, kind of hidden in plain sight, you have the Moroccan flag, and then, you know, the all-seeing eye, you know, representing God and man, or representing Allah. Okay, and they skipped over that. They're not gonna talk about that. You know, they're acting like they don't know what the secret is, or they can't tell you what the secret is, but it's hidden right there. Okay, and so like that, you know, it's a documentary. Most people's not gonna see it, or if they see it, it goes right over their head. But this isn't hidden here for no reason. Okay, this is why the prophet was telling the people that you can go and talk to the people who are in government in an intelligent tone, meaning you understand already. I'm not coming to you asking you, is this right? Do you, like, listen, okay, when black people vote, you know, they just vote Democrat. No thought put into it at all. No negotiation process, nothing. Just vote emotionally. Years ago, they had some representatives from Black Lives Matter talking to Hillary Clinton when she was trying to run for president. And they're just asking her stupid things like, do you like black people? You know? They're not getting to the meat of it. This is what we need. This is what we want. You want our support. You want us to throw support behind you. We need X, Y, and Z. You know, they're coming at it completely emotional. They're not, getting, what's really there. Like, this is a negotiation process. You don't give blind loyalty to anyone, and especially voting for parties, right? And we're the last people on earth that should be like that, right? But this is what was taking place, and this is what happens on a broader scale with our people, period, okay? And so with things like this, nobody's seeing this. I mean, you have, our own brothers and sisters that are in the craft that don't even know this stuff, okay? And they'll swear up and down that it's all good, that this isn't true, okay? But it's like, look, your lodge doesn't look like this, and I'm not talking down on Freemasonry or anything like that at all. Much respect to all organizations, but they're hiding this from you, okay? You're not the same, and it's not all, a loving brotherhood. This is a part of keeping the light from you. All right. This isn't told to everyone. Okay. And so this is a big deal. All right. It's a big deal. And like I was saying, it's all built off of you. You not knowing that connection. That's what it's all built off of. This is keeping the light from you. All right. Keeping the light from entering your mind. Okay. So when they see that flag, and they see you with your fez or turban, and you know who you are. This is what I was saying, asking in an intelligent tone. Now you can have a different conversation on a different level, okay? Because there's no secrets here. I know what's going on. I'm in the know now, okay? And as the creators of civilization, as the Moors, you're having a different conversation now. Things are totally different. Okay, so it's a big deal, and it's all built off of your backs. But if you don't know that you're a Moor, you don't really know the ties. Okay, all right. The entire country. I mean, everything is based off of us, like I was saying. The colonists, the 13 colonies, these different companies, they received permission, basically from the Sultan, from the empire, the Moroccan Empire, to not only to do trade, because they were having issues with trying to travel on the seas. You had different Barbary states, different powers that were battling them, sinking their ships. So they had that, but they also, they wanted to be recognized as a unified nation, right? The 13 colonies coming together. Okay, so who recognized them first? Morocco. All right, and that's where the Treaty of Peace and Friendship comes from, for the most part. Okay, they recognized them as a nation, and to this day, okay, way over 200 years later, all right, 230 years later or more, still is recognized. The United States still pays homage to this. If you could see this picture, I don't know, the quality, you got Hillary Clinton sitting here with the Moroccan flag, U.S. flag. She's speaking about the long-standing treaty between the United States and Morocco, and still paying homage to them. Then you have down in the corner, you got Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. They had to do the same thing. Every president does this. They all have to pay homage, right? Because Mohammed III, Sultan of Morocco, granted the United States safe passage through the Straits of Gibraltar, but also he recognized formally them as an independent nation. Okay, and so there's like a story, I guess you could say kind of like an urban legend, that George Washington cutting down our cherry tree really symbolizes the placing of the labels denoting to slavery on the Negroes and hiding who they truly are. Okay, but spoken of in light of what we discussed earlier, what's on the record, them talking about cutting off the light, okay, and seeing what's going on now in front of you is kind of hidden, but not really. It's in plain sight, right? Hidden in plain sight. So seeing it in the true proper perspective, you can see that, you know, whether that's what it really means or not, that's what it means. It's true. It's all true. Okay? Right? So if you don't know our story, none of this makes any sense. It doesn't make any sense. You know, like I'm saying, I'm not speaking down on any organizations. We just have to keep it real because I can. You know, I'm in the know. I'm not, you know, I'm not a slave. I'm a noble. And so I can speak on that level and keep it real. But if you don't know this stuff, you know, if you don't know our story, none of this makes sense. It doesn't make sense why they're having a Shriner parade. Why do they even wear this headdress? Who was originally wearing this? Oh, we're going to get into that. We're going to tell you who and show you who was originally wearing this, right? And why you should wear it with pride. And why, like, if somebody's clowning this, you know, or trying to, you know, attack it, like, they're insane. Especially if they claim to know anything about history. Okay? But then, you know, and that makes them questionable as well. But putting this in a proper perspective now, then when you see stuff like this with the Shriners, you know, you see this guy in a Morocco Fezmobile, right? Why is he in a Morocco Fezmobile? He's riding around in this, okay? Got the tassel on it and everything. Okay, then you see President Harry Truman with other Shriners. This is what the prophet was telling you. Go and speak to the people in government in an intelligent tone. He's not saying go and kiss their feet or bow down to them. He's saying go speak in an intelligent tone. If I'm speaking in an intelligent tone, that means that the light hasn't been cut off for me, right? I've been restored. I'm in my proper perspective. You know, I can see things for how they truly are. So when I see these guys riding around down the street in a Fezmobile that says Morocco on it, I know what's really going on. I know who they're paying homage to and why they have to do this. Okay, so I can speak in an intelligent tone and have an entirely different conversation than this person who's claiming black and wants to hold on to that like it's empowering, like that's really what your ancestors were calling themselves. Makes no sense at all. But like I said, so if you don't know our story and our real story, none of this makes any sense. We're going to come back to this because by the time we finish with this, all of this is going to be in the proper perspective. You'll see how insane it is to attack this, who we truly are. Okay, so as we were saying with the video before about this being the mystical Freemasonry being built around Atlantis rising again in America, because this was Atlantis, okay? And the secret's right there, right, of who we truly are, okay? You know, that was probably a mistake. They probably meant to edit that out, you know, with that Moroccan flags. They're not trying to wake us up, okay? But, you know, putting this in the proper perspective, everything is based off of us. These symbols we see all the time, right? These symbols right there are on the U.S. dollar. You got the eagle holding the branch and the arrows. You got the pyramid, of course, with the eye of Horus, and all of these are our symbols. Okay, you'll see them in Egypt, as you can see on one side of the screen. You've got Horus with Ra, like a symbol over his head, and then that's just like the same thing with the eagle. Then down at the bottom you got the same symbol, obviously, with the pyramid, right? Unmistakably you're going to associate pyramids with Egypt, even though they've been found all over the world. But then on the other side, and there's a video about this on this same channel, on the other side you got a pyramid. This was a stone sculpture that's probably like this big, that was found in Ecuador, okay? And it has the eye of Horus on it, just like the one on the U.S. dollar, same 13 steps and everything, okay? That was found here in Ecuador, all right? And how can this be found in Ecuador and it's just like the one that's on the U.S. dollar, okay? And it's ancient, and they can't even tell how old it is. The only thing that they know is that it predates all civilization they understand. Okay, there was an ancient script that was on the bottom of this same pyramid stone that you see, okay, which once again was found in Ecuador, which is in South America, okay, and the script that was on it, okay, has been found all over the world, all right, and there was a linguist, like I think from Germany or somewhere like that, who could somewhat make it out, and they got someone else who was from North Africa, from the Berber people, who could translate this, okay? And so they have an idea. They know, linguistically the connection. And that, more on that, the guy who was able to translate it, his people have their own stories about their they have their own oral tradition about going back before the continent split up. They have their own tradition about Atlantis and about, lands falling and rising, under the sea. Okay? And I hope this isn't too much, but just to add on to that, if any of this sounds incredible, okay, we actually have, in the museums, there's this thing called the Troano MS. And what that is these are scrolls that were found here in Central America. Okay, I believe in Mexico, maybe Belize. All right, these are ancient Olmec scrolls. Olmec, okay, or Mayan. All right, some Mayan came later, but these were ancient Olmec scrolls that, detail their life, and they actually spoke about cataclysms that happened, which caused some of the lands to rise above the sea and some to go under the sea. Okay? Their civilization is so old that they witnessed this happen. Okay? Whether this was 10,000 years ago, they'll try to tell you the continent split up billions of years ago. They can't tell you that. They're the youngest civilization on Earth. Okay? But we actually have people who recorded these events. And then you can look this up. It's called the Troano, Troamos. Troano MS. Okay, and this scroll was found here. And what happened when the Portuguese and the Spanish were coming over to the Americas, okay, there were temples, there were pyramids, there were cities, they had running water, we had lights, we had roads, all of this stuff. Okay, there were libraries, there were universities. Okay, and they would destroy these books, and the ones that they didn't destroy, they were sending them to the Vatican to go into the vaults, to be hidden away from you. Some of this stuff, survived. People kept them for their personal collections or whatever. The Troano just happened to be smuggled to Europe. It's actually in a museum in London. So I'm not making this up. And it's known. It's been translated. Okay, they know. These people whose culture are old, these people who were so advanced, they built pyramids. They understood, complex science and spirituality. All right, and they wrote about the continent splitting up and breaking apart and all that. Okay, and in this area, well, kind of Ecuador, right, not too far from there, you found this pyramid, okay, which had a worldwide language on it. Okay, and so these things, like that pyramid, that's associated with Egypt. But the real reason I brought this up is because Egypt was a worldwide culture. Okay, from that perspective, Egypt was a worldwide culture. It wouldn't matter what you called the people, because the people weren't calling themselves Olmecs. That was a name that was placed on them. But whatever they called themselves, this is Egypt. This is a worldwide culture. Okay? All right? And so the connection to this is only through you being a Moor. Okay? And I dare anyone to come and try to attack that. Okay? And from the brother George G.M. James, okay, who was highly educated. He taught in several universities. He was a professor at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, PhD. He wrote the book Stolen Legacy, okay? And here's a quote from it. In the 8th century A.D., the Moors, i.e. natives of Mauritania in North Africa, invaded Spain and took with them the Egyptian culture which they had preserved. They preserved this, right? Knowledge in the ancient days was centralized. Okay, it belonged to a common parent system. So this is what I was saying. The Olmecs. There's pyramids like in Japan, like off the coast of Japan. They got pyramids that are underwater. Okay, which I've seen some of the video of it before from scuba divers. There's step pyramids and everything, stone structures built by man. And so they're all over the world. Anywhere you saw this type of technology, information, understanding, this was Egypt, okay? The wisdom teachings or the mysteries of Egypt, which the Greeks used to call Sophia. During their occupation in Spain, the Moors displayed with considerable credit the grandeur of African culture and civilization. The schools and libraries which they established became famous throughout the medieval world. Science and learning were cultivated and taught. The schools of Cordova, Toledo, Seville, and Saragossa attained such celebrity that they, like their parent Egypt, speaking on the Moors, because at the beginning of the sentence, speaking on the Moors displayed all this stuff everywhere they went, okay, throughout Africa, when they went into Europe, everywhere, right? So they, like their parent Egypt, attracted students from all over the world. So aren't you what your parents are? And from them arose the most famous African professors that the world has ever known in medicine, surgery, astronomy, and mathematics. In addition, the Moors kept up constant contact with Mother Egypt. Okay, so you are what your parents are. But, they, like their parent, attracted students from all over the world. So when they set up these schools in Cordova and Toledo, Cordoba, in Al-Andalus, which later became known as España, Spain, okay, their parents were Egypt. Egypt is who they were. You are who your parents are, okay? They preserved and kept this culture alive because it was their culture, all right? In addition, the Moors kept up constant contact with Mother Egypt and established caliphates in Baghdad, Cordova, but also in Cairo in Egypt. All right, just here it would be well to mention that all the great leaders of the great religions of antiquity were initiates of the Egyptian mystery system. Okay, so look, you found this pyramid, okay, that glows under a black light, looks just like the one on the dollar. Here, that's Egyptian, that's Moorish. Okay, here's the Moorish connection. That's Moorish. All right, and that's why in the very beginning, okay, we see them doing this. This is Moorish. Okay, in the very first slide on here, okay? What is he doing? He's got this tie with all these Egyptian symbols. This is ours. This is Moorish. He's wearing a fez, our headdress. Okay? They're cutting you off from your light. All right? Anywhere you saw Egyptian anything, okay, whether it was in Egypt or in Ohio, this is Moorish. And that's the connection. And there's nothing anyone else can say about that. Okay, George G.M. James, PhD, he taught, I think he taught science, mathematics, and history. Okay, look, you can argue with this, but you're gonna wind up looking really foolish. Okay, so looking at this again, just closer up of the pyramid. All right, this is just like the one off the dollar. Okay, found here, and then it had an ancient script that's found all over the world, showing there was a worldwide civilization, okay? Which means before the continent split up, there was one language, an ancient advanced culture that was building pyramids, okay? And so putting this in the proper perspective now, going further into the Pacific Ocean, you had this place called Easter Island, and you can see the Easter Island heads up here. Okay, I used to see that growing up, but I never saw them wearing fezzes. But come to find out, there's a whole bunch of these massive statues where they're wearing fezzes carved out of stone. And they made sure that the stone was red so that it would be unmistakable even thousands of years later, right? Even thousands of years later, it's still unmistakable. They're wearing some type of red hat, right? They want to call it a hat. It's a headdress, okay? And so even if you can see from this meme up in the corner, this is an ancient Egyptian sculpture, actually in modern day Egypt, right? Where the pharaoh has on a fez. I don't care what you want to call it. It's a fez. The Olmec heads, you've got them. Most cases, people are going to say they're wearing helmets. But in this case, I mean, this helmet looks a lot like a fez with tassels on it and maybe a turban wrapped around at the bottom. Okay? Could be wrong. This quote is from the book Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx by the man Augustus Le Plongeon. Wait, what? Yeah. Le Plongeon, right? And he was a well-to-do European man, had a lot of money, and he was able to finance his own excavations, right? And so he published a lot of stuff speaking on the ancient Egyptian connection to the Americas, and he spoke on this stuff a lot, and he also spoke on how the people there that they call Olmecs now, or Mayans, right, were dark-skinned people that they would call black. Okay, so he spoke on this, and he published his books himself. As if he didn't, have the money to do that, that stuff wouldn't have got published. Okay, and so this quote that's up here on the screen, he's speaking on the ancient societies in the Americas and their connection to the Mayans, and he's talking about the Peruvian royalty. Okay, and so he's got a quote from some old Spanish explorers, okay, who actually interacted with the ancient cultures when they came over here. It says, Garcia Lasso de la Vega, Cieza de Leon, Acosta, and other writers on Peruvian customs and manners inform us that the fringe and tassel of the Yantu, royal headdress of the Incas, right? YNCAS is the Incas. The royal headdress was a Yantu. It had a fringe and tassel, and it was made of fine crimson wool. Okay? Fine crimson wool, meaning it looked like this, and it had a tassel and fringe like this. And it was worn by the royal Incas. Okay? The royal Incas, all right, were wearing fezzes. But I don't care if they call it a Yantu. It doesn't matter what name it is. It's just like if the people weren't calling themselves Moors at that time. They had different tribes. Eventually we had different languages and everything. At one point there was one language. It split up. Different languages. May even add, different things to it. Their fez may look a little different than the person who was in California's fez is going to look, right? Okay? Doesn't matter what they called it. It's still a fez. Okay, so the Incas, the royal Incas in Peru called their fez a Yantu. Okay, fringe and tassel, fine crimson wool. All right, crimson is dark red. Okay, dark red. Ancient Americans, royalty, Incas, wearing a dark red fez with the tassel and everything. Okay, and then you see on here too the Easter Island heads in the Pacific wearing the fez. They didn't have to carve this. These are carved out of stone. These are massive. These things are huge and heavy, and they carved it. And they have, volcanic rock or whatever. They made sure that they used some that was red, or they stained it red. I'll have to do the research on that to know how they got it to be red. It's probably not even known, okay? But they made sure that they were wearing fezzes, okay? All right, so this is why we pay homage to the prophet. Okay? It is deep. It's really deep. Okay? This goes deeper even than the Moors in Spain or whatever, you may have been exposed to. Okay? We were lost in the darkness, and he reconnected us to our ancient and divine heritage. I'm not sure if this quote is real or not or authentic, but there is a quote saying, I took the covers off of all the secret organizations. I think that's from the oral statements. Okay? And peace and much love to Brother Heru Ranasiel for putting that book out there. That's beautiful artwork showing the prophet lifting up fallen humanity, right, out of the cares of the world. But even that image, okay, goes deeper than we may think of. Because that image that the prophet used, this book is for what's known as the 101s, but it's the Quran questionnaire, right? On that book, he's got himself holding fallen humanity, represented as a woman, lifting her from the cares of the world. But even that image has been found over here, amongst the Aztec people, the Mayan people. Okay, you've got an Aztec in here standing on the top of a pyramid, which they didn't build. The Aztecs didn't build the pyramids. They came later on. They just kind of sort of inherited that culture. So the people who actually built the pyramids were dark-skinned Moors, were Olmec people. Okay, so this would have been an Olmec symbol. But the later people, the Aztecs, adopted that culture. And so they kept that going. And so you see this same symbol, okay, with the prophet lifting a woman, up, carrying her. And this is the same image. So why would they do that? Why would they, do the same symbol? They're working with the same information. The prophet, was an ancient Egyptian adept, okay? Or he was an adept in the ancient Egyptian mystery systems, okay? All right, he was an Egyptian adept dealing with this ancient knowledge and wisdom. And what did Brother G.M. James tell us, right? PhD, wrote the book Stolen Legacy. He informed us from his years and years of research and experience that knowledge in the ancient days was centralized. It belonged to a common parent system, the wisdom teaching. In other words, the mysteries of Egypt, okay? The ancient Egyptian mystery school. All right, so anytime you're dealing with people who had enough culture and civilization, enough understanding to build pyramids, things that they can't even reproduce today, to build these gigantic statues, out of massive, solid stone, doing things that they can't even do today. These are people who are dealing with the Egyptian knowledge and wisdom. It's Egyptian, okay? Or it's Moorish. Why? Because in that same understanding, we know that the Moors are the caretakers of this knowledge. They, like their parents, attracted students from all over the Western world. Wherever they set up schools, right? The Moors, people were coming to learn. Why? Because these are the ancient Egyptians. These are the creators of civilization, the Moors, right? Okay, so once again, when you see even just the symbol, like this is not simple. Even just the symbol from the Quran questionnaire with the prophet lifting the woman, this is also ancient Egyptian wisdom. Okay, and so when you see these Aztec symbols, we were in a Mexican restaurant not too long ago, and just looking up on the wall, boom, they have the same symbol. Why? They're dealing with the Aztec culture. Okay, and so this is ancient American culture as well. Why? Because Egypt was over here too. Okay. All right, and so everything, even the stances where you see the prophet standing, with his hand over his heart. Okay. That's been found over here too. These other statues, these are from ancient American cultures as well. All right. The quote that's up there, this is some more mystical information. Just we are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. All right. It is a fact that Memphis, Egypt, in the pyramids, under the guidance of the kings, the mystic rites of masonry, were worked many thousands of years ago. But at that time, Egypt and the continent of America were one and the same. And America, rediscovered in the 15th century and repopulated in the 17th, was rediscovered Egypt. Was recovered Egypt and the Promised Land, or the land of the constellation of the Eagle. So if you really read anything like dealing with mysticism, you're going to come across this. This is what Madame H. P. Blavatsky, Manly P. Hall, all of these people were into, even Crowley and all of these people. This is what they were really getting into, okay? They wrote massive amounts of books. There's a ton of literature on this topic, okay? So there's no way I'm making this up, all right? This is what it was all about, okay? And so they're saying that Egypt was actually over here. Not saying that wasn't Egypt as well. Egypt was an ancient culture, but Atlantis was here, all right? Okay, and that's another thing that LaPlungion, the same guy where I got this quote from, with about the Yantu being the royal headdress of the Incas. He was speaking on that too. He was heavy in Central America and dealing with the Olmec culture, and he's like, look, they're spending so much money at the time, talking about in the 1800s, going over to Egypt, right, and going over to the east. But he's like, this is where it's really at. This is the origin of that. Okay? And so when you put that, also, as we get further into this, when you put that in a proper perspective, now you're dealing with this, and it's like, okay, all of these people may not understand it that deeply, but they're in. They know that they have to keep that secret from you. Okay? And so you can't even have that conversation with them on that level and really do business how you need to, okay, unless you're able to see the light, which is what the prophet came to restore to us. Okay? So, like, it's not going to them asking for anything, all right? It's coming and being able to deal on the proper perspective at the proper level, and you have to have that understanding of who you are. And then when you look at this and you see that, the whole thing of mystical Freemasonry is built around Atlantis rising here, and then you see that they've got these symbols that we are the ancient Egyptians, we're the Moors, And it's hidden right there. But they're not going to tell you that. Okay? All right? And so it's insane to doubt one of us who came to reconnect us to this. But we're gonna keep moving, okay? And of course, many of us are open now to the idea or the understanding that we weren't all brought over here on slave ships, okay? The term for American, if you look that up in the 1828 dictionary, it says an aboriginal, one of the various copper-colored natives found on the American continent by the Europeans. And this definition doesn't have the whole thing, because it also says now applies to descendants of Europeans born in America, right? And if you think about what happened in 1828, what were they discussing in 1832? Okay, let me say that again. The dictionary definition in 1828 from, I believe, the Webster's Dictionary, 1828. Okay, you got to think a lot of work and research went into compiling and creating these dictionaries, defining these words. Okay, so in 1828, American's definition was an aboriginal or one of the various copper-colored natives found on the American continent by the Europeans, and the other half of the definition is but now applies to descendants of Europeans born in America. Okay? That's what it says now. Okay? Now, if you're looking at that, you know, and you're seeing that was a switcheroo right in that definition, and telling you that the Americans were the copper-colored people found in the Americas, but now it applies to the descendants of Europeans forming Americas, and we're the copper-colored people, even though we're not colorable, we're not going by colors, just being real. What color is copper? Dark brown. Okay, and so we're various shades of brown, okay, but we're the only people that fit that description. And this is how come in the past, you know, many of our ancestors, like our grandparents and especially great-grandparents, had that connection, knew what tribe they were from and everything, okay? And some of us, you know, overlooked this when they talked about the tribal connection, or you were thinking they were trying to say they were mixed or something like this. Back in the days, like these old magazine covers up here called Copper Romance, there were several magazines like this where, they got different so-called African American women on it, right? Referring to as Copper Romance. It's not like it says Copper Romance and they got the type of people who are passing for Native American today on there, right? People that, either straight up European or people that are just a hint of something else, and that people that for the most part look like Europeans. Okay, that's what they're saying is Native American today. They don't look anything like their skin tone could be copper. All right, they look like people that get sunburnt in the sun. So the switcheroo in 1828, that dictionary is letting you know what was going on. They're saying it applied to the copper-colored people, but now applies to the descendants of Europeans born here. And what did we speak on in the beginning? What happened in 1832? Henry Berry sitting there in the House of Delegates in Virginia talking about cutting the light off, right? Keeping it from entering our mind, okay? Keeping you from knowing who you are and your connection to the land, who you are, your heritage, your birthright. All of that. Okay? All right. So, and I mean, look, the further back you go in the past, you'll see, especially when you're looking at things from the 16 and 1700s, things like this painting. This painting is over 250 years old. Okay? I believe this is from the either late 1700s or early 1800s. Okay, so you see what this emblem of America shows. It's a very dark-skinned person, right? Compared to what they say is, passed for Native American today. All right, so the prophet came to reconnect us to this, and you look at the headdress. He or she's wearing a turban, okay, with the feather in it. The prophet did the same thing. Okay, and you see in this meme with the prophet, there's statues. These statues are statues of Blackamoor Indians. This is what they used to call the Indians, the indigenous people of the Americas, and it's how they used to depict them. Okay, it's Blackamoors, dark-skinned people. All right, and Same headdress. They're wearing turbans with a feather in it. Okay? You know, so this is big. He came to reconnect us. So by you wearing your turban, your fez, you know, even if you are just starting to wake up, it's helping to bring your DNA back online, waking up something within you and others around you. When they see you, they're starting to remember who they are as well. Okay? And so a lot of people have seen these pyramids, the Pyramid of the Moon. These are in Belize and Mexico. And so a lot of people have seen this before. You may be associated with the Mayans, the Olmecs, okay? So our ancestors built pyramids. They built universities, libraries worldwide. Okay, so you've seen this, but how many people have seen these before, right? These are all over North America. This one is in Ohio, the Miamisburg Mound, right? So we built these all over the world. Okay? And anywhere, remember, anywhere you see this type of thing occurring, you're dealing with the ancient Egyptian knowledge and wisdom. Okay? Plain and simple. There's no argument over that. No one can make a serious, you know, scholarly argument about that. It just can't happen. All right? Just to speak on that a little bit more, look, this quote is from News from London, 1776. In a brief narrative of the encounters between the early colonists of New England and the native Indians, all right, I find it stated that these unfortunate gentlemen were intercepted by 700 Moors, with whom they fought for the space of 4 hours, till not only they too, but Captain Sharp and 51 Christians more lay dead upon the place. And again that at Woodcocks, 10 miles from Sincoch, on the 16th of May, was a little skirmish between the Moors and Christians, wherein there was of the latter 3 slain and 2 wounded, and only 2 Indians killed. Okay, and so this is talking about something that occurred in New England in the 1600s. Okay, and they're calling the Indians Moors in the same sentence. You know, or in the same quote. All right, the native Indians. All right, they're calling them Moors. Scrimmage betwixt the Moors and Christians. All right. Okay, so to reconnect to your divine heritage, you have to be more. You have to be more than what they said you were. You have to know our story. Okay, they begin his story with slavery. They start you off as a slave, as a Negro. And so if you're claiming to be black and still holding on to that black power, black whatever you're trying, whatever foolishness is going on where you're still trying to hold on to that label, Negro, black, colored, African American, Afro American, maybe they'll try to mix it up again with a new label. It doesn't matter what it is. It still is denoting to the same thing. This is something that they created. Okay? This is not connecting you to your divine heritage. All right? So Noble Drew Ali taught that the Moors were living up and down the Mississippi River before the European even arrived. Okay? And by not being who we are, you know, and following through and acting as Moors and carrying ourselves as Moors and doing business as Moors, we inadvertently gave the European an extra 30 years to rule, you know, just by remaining confused about our true origins in the Americas. Okay, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali revealed that we were from the Americas and that we had to remove the slave labels placed on us. So it doesn't matter if it's Negro, black, colored, African American, it's all, you know, still denoting to the label that was created, you know, to enslave us. All right. And he did all that, you know, back in the 1910s and 1920s. Okay. And so, you know, it's really time to, you know, start to heed this advice, this the system and everything that was set up for us. I mean, we adopted the terms and we ran with it. So at this point in time, it's on us. Anything that we're not, you know, that we're not prospering at, or any things that we are suffering now, it's on us at this point, you know? All right, because they created a narrative for us. And I'm not saying that no one was brought over here on slave ships or anything like that. I'm just saying that the majority of us were already over here. Okay? And so people were sent to other places. People were sent from Mississippi to the islands in the Caribbean and vice versa, and different things like that to different states, you know? And they were being labeled as a Negro. Amongst that voyage, they had to do paperwork for everyone. In the movie 12 Years a Slave, you see the guy, he's like in New England somewhere, okay? And he's free man. He has a family and everything. He's working. He's obviously educated. He could play the violin. In that same movie, while he's free in the beginning, he sees a guy going into the store who looks like him, you know, meaning he was a Moor, but he was enslaved. You know, he was a slave to one of these Europeans. Okay, so he knew it was going on at the time. Some guys in the movie, if you haven't seen 12 Years a Slave, 2 European dudes act like they had a gig for him, and they tricked him. They drugged him. He wakes up in a prison cell, and he gets sold, you know, to some plantation in Louisiana. All right, and he's telling them he's free the whole time. They're like, no, you're a Negro, you're a slave. They doctored up some paperwork saying this is our Negro slave. We captured him. You know, we bought him. You know, a Negro means that he came from Africa somewhere, even though he was born here in the Americas, and he was from here and he was free. Okay, so he got sold into slavery, and like eventually he got his own paperwork proving that, you know, or he got some people to come and to attest that they knew him, that he was free, and he, you know, eventually got his freedom. But the whole point of it was that he was a free man, and they doctored up his paperwork to say that he was a Negro. Okay, and when you go by that label, and then he was from New England. Okay, and what happened in New England, and is previously this news from New England, which you can look up on your own, 1676. What were they saying? In a brief native narrative of the encounters between the early colonists of New England and the native Indians, I find that these unfortunate gentlemen were intercepted by 700 Moors. So they're calling the Indians in New England Moors, with whom they fought for the space of 4 hours, till not only they too, but a whole bunch, 51 more Christians lay dead. All right, and then later on it says it was a little scrimmage betwixt the Moors and the Christians. Okay, so they're calling the Indians Moors. All right, and so when you look at this between the Moors and the Christians, you know this battle between the Moors and Christians is still going on. So there's really no point in you being a Christian, but we're not really going to go into that right now. Okay, so this is still going on though. You know, the Christians trying to, you know, get payback on the Moors. All right, and they called the indigenous of New England Moors. Okay, so the brother was free. He was a Moor in 12 Years a Slave in New England, where you see they were calling the indigenous people in New England Moors. He got captured. They marked him as a Negro and sold him into slavery. All right, and they probably, ain't no telling, they probably said he was from Africa, you know, and that's supposed to be based on a true story. This guy named Solomon Northup, you know, he wrote a book, a biography about his experience. Okay, so no telling. I need to get that book, because in the book he probably describes himself being indigenous. You know, there was a guy, the first person to die in the American Revolutionary War, Crispus Attucks. All right, they're like the first person to die in the American Revolutionary War was a Moor. They don't tell you he was a Moor. They say he was a Negro named Crispus Attucks. You know, and they'll talk about that in Black history, but what they won't tell you was that Crispus Attucks was a Wampanoag Indian. Okay? All right? So, you know, this goes a lot deeper than most people know. So we pay homage to the prophet, we honor and respect him. We this is also why I advise people to join the Moorish Science Temple, or at least work with the Moorish Science Temple. Find out what the prophet actually brought. You know, he established a society for us, you know, to correct this situation. You can join, you can proclaim your nationality, you can work with your Moors in the proper capacity, because you can only get so far, you know, trying to work under the label that they created for you, which denotes to slavery. Social, politically, you know, you're still a slave. Okay, the black people aren't truly citizens, just to keep it real. Not truly citizens. Okay, they have some rights and privileges, all right, of citizens, but they're not truly citizens. Okay, why else, you know, when you had the whole Hurricane Katrina thing, you have all these brothers and sisters that are displaced, Why are they calling them refugees? Why are they calling them refugees on CNN? Why are people in government calling them refugees? For those of you who aren't old enough, I was an adult when that went down. I saw it. It was horrible. And I peeped that on, the news and was like, whoa. Yeah, I knew that this Moorish thing was real. But for those who don't, go back and look it up and you'll see. We're not making this up. They were calling our people refugees who were American citizens, U.S. citizens, right? Why are they calling them refugees? Right there on TV, people in government referring to them as refugees. Because black people aren't truly citizens. However, they can get passports. They can get some of the rights and privileges as citizens, but they can also still be abused, misused, mistreated, taken advantage of. And the people who do it can get away with it because they are still under these labels, okay, that keep them outside of the constitutional fold. All right? And that's what the prophet came to do, to restore us back to this, to bring us back into the constitutional fold. At the end of the day, this is what it's really about. Okay. One more thing, a lot of things like when the prophet was alive back in the 20s, he was actually not only able to vote, able to get thousands of Moors to vote, and able to put people in office, able to put Asiatics in office, Moors in office, okay? At a time when our people couldn't even vote. How was he able to do this? Because they were true American citizens. All right, even in a time where Jim Crowism, all this stuff is going on, they're hanging our people. It was hell on a lot of people, and our people weren't able to vote and a lot of stuff like that, and they were able to move completely differently. Okay. All right. And this is why I'm saying you have to be able to speak in an intelligent tone and move properly. Okay. Because you got to think about that. If our people weren't able to vote, they didn't really have rights and privileges of citizens. Right. They weren't truly citizens. They weren't. Right. Why did they have to do the Civil Rights Act? Why do you have to make a special act just for them to be able to vote and to do things that all citizens are supposed to be able to do? Because they didn't have true rights and privileges. They had granted privileges. They didn't have true rights. They were not citizens. Okay, they were outside of the constitutional fold. At the end of the day, that's what it's truly about. Okay, and that's why they had the Civil Rights Act, and that's how come the voting rights, have to be renewed like every 25 years. That's ridiculous. And that's something that, any intelligent person, once you find out that your right to vote has to be up for renewal every 25 years, you should snap out of it. Like immediately, snap out of it. What the hell's really going on? Excuse my French. What's really going on here? Right? Why is your right to vote up for renewal? That's ridiculous. So they're not truly citizens. They have granted privileges. They can be taken away. They can be denied. All right? And so the prophet came to correct this. And that's why I say you should study so that you can understand why the Moorish Temple of America, what the prophet established, the Moorish divine and national movement is the only salvation for our people in this day and time. Okay? All right, and if you look up the Moorish Temple of America, you'll see, that it falls under the scope of body politic. All right, and if you look up body politic, we have some definitions up here. I think this one at the bottom is from Google, where it just says, or Wikipedia or something. It says a term applied to a corporation which is usually designated as a body politic, body corporate. The term is particularly appropriate to a public corporation invested with powers and duties of government. It is often used in a rather loose way to designate the state or nation or sovereign power of the government of a country or municipality. All right, but if you look at the Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, 1856, it says, body politic, government, corporations. When applied to the government, this phrase signifies the state. As to the persons who compose the body politic, they take collectively the name of people or nation. And individually they are citizens, when considered in relation to their political rights and subjects as being submitted to the laws of state. Okay, so this is really important. There's some people, even people who, some people who are in the Moorish Temple of America who will try to say this is not true, and it's like, I don't know what they're talking about. They don't really know what they're talking about. But if you look at how the Moorish Temple of America was established under Heard's revised statute, it's a body politic, and as you can see, I mean, like, what was going on in that time. Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856, 6th edition. Okay, when applied to the government, this phrase signifies the state. As to the persons who compose the body politic, Moorish Americans compose the Moorish Temple of America, they take collectively the name of people or nation. Okay, so it's big. All right, and I advise everyone, if you didn't know this stuff, or you need to know more, and things that we're not going to be able to cover in the video since we're wrapping things up, look this up, gain a deeper understanding, come into the light, so that you have a more proper understanding of what we really have and why this is the only salvation. You cannot continue to go under something that was created to enslave you. That should be understood by now, right? That should be plain and simple. And there's no denying that the prophet was real, like what he came and did. Like he had the wisdom and insight, and we do honor him for that. Okay? And so if you're claiming to be a Moor, for those who already think they're Moors, and you don't really see why the prophet was even important, why you should study him, now you should know. This is the link. He connected you to all of this, your vast estate. Okay? And this is the way out. And the society that he established for us. Okay, the Moorish Temple of America. It's not just a religious, a religion. It's not just, a religious group. Okay, it's a society. Okay, where you come and you learn your culture and customs. You learn your connection to divinity, your divine origin. All right, your divine covenant that our Creator has with us. You learn who you are. You get reconnected. Okay, to all this stuff that we're talking about. Even the Incas were wearing the fez. You have to come back and get connected to this. Okay, and that's one of the purposes that it's here for. Okay, we have our own. We are a real nation, a real people, but operating under all of these other labels and terms and things that have been made up and created, it keeps you outside of that. Okay, so it's time to wake up. Okay, and there's nothing really else that anyone could say attacking this stuff. It's crazy. They've hidden it long enough. Now it's time to be able to have a real intelligent conversation. You can't have an intelligent conversation if you don't have the light. All right? And that's really what this was all about. Reconnecting everyone to the light so that we can move properly. Okay, it's time to stop playing games. It really is. I'm thankful for everybody that came in here today. All right? I'm hoping that you all shared this. But if you haven't shared this video, stop playing around. Don't play games. Click the share button. You should share this a couple of times because, there's a lot of people that need to understand this. And if they're patient enough to go through this video, they're going to gain a deeper understanding on what this is really about. A lot of people aren't really explaining it like this. So y'all need to hit this button. Hit the like and the share button. And that's really it. I appreciate it. Everybody hit the like and share button. Hopefully, some of you guys gained some more insight on this. Thank you all for tuning in, but make sure you share this. And then after you shared it, go back and share it again tomorrow. You should share it throughout the week, really, because people need to know this. Okay? And also, one more thing is that you have people out here who are, like, I guess, knowingly spreading ignorance and misinformation. Okay? Because there's some people who act like they're smart, act like they're about liberating our people, improving our, conditions, who are, trying to attack the Moors, which is ridiculous. This is your only connection. For those who love ancient Kemet, this is your only connection to that. Okay? All right, some of these people who say this have GM James' stolen legacy in their house. You never read it, though. Because if you read it, and if you read anything from even Van Sertima, if you read at all, All right, do any research. You will see they're all telling you, okay? And these are people who weren't like trying to push the Moorish agenda. They didn't have L's and Bays or anything like that on their name. They're all telling you that the Moors are the ancient Egyptians. Okay? Even people of European descent like Gerald Massey, he tells you that. In the what's the name of that book? The Origin of Nations. I think it's called The Origin of Nations. But in that book, okay, and this is once again is a European, all right, he's telling you how the ancient Egyptians were Moors, and he's straight up telling you that they're Moors, and that there was a worldwide civilization. Okay? And I want to get the name of that book for you so that I could give it to you so you can go look it up yourself. But I'm just saying this to say that anyone who really had knowledge and wisdom, who really did research, they knew this. Okay? And so this isn't like just me trying to just pump up the Moors for no reason. This is what it really is. This is it. This is the light. And it was a book of beginnings. The Book of the Beginnings by Gerald Massey. It's a huge book with like 500 pages or something in it. Okay? And in there, multiple instances, he tells you the Moors are the connection to ancient Egypt and how they were worldwide. All the way from the Maori in New Zealand. You know, he breaks down how that's connected to the Moors. All right? And how Maori is connected to ta-meri, which is ancient Egypt. Okay? But he's not the only one. So it's real. It's so real. And, you know, if you don't know, you're on the outside looking in. That's the light that was cut off. That's what this whole discussion was about. That's what the light is that got cut off from us. Okay? It's you not knowing that you're more. Plain as simple. Okay? Which, you know, to simplify it, just means that what the prophet established was true. It was real. You know? We're Moors. And them pretending that you're not Moors and laughing about it and joking about it and keeping it hidden from you, that's cutting you off from the light. That's it. You know, to simplify everything that was discussed in this video. Cutting you off from the light was cutting you off from your divine heritage as a Moor. All right? And the prophet came and reconnected us. So I advise everyone, especially if you claim to be a Moor, you better be studying the prophet. All right? And you need to look into the society he established for us and stop coming up with excuses, lame excuses why you're not building anything, why you're not doing anything, why you're not trying to fix if you think the temple's messed up, why you're not trying to fix it. Stop. Because if you got excuses, you're just lame and you whack and you're a Negro and you cool with being a Negro. You know? Because if you got excuses for not fixing stuff, you're lame. Okay? It's just like, you know, if you know all this stuff and you're still drinking and getting high, okay, you just got excuses, man. You're not doing anything about anything. That's just for those who already know all this or claim to. Okay, but this is the connection. This is how come this guy has the fez and the Egyptian tie on. Because he knows. And it's funny that you don't know. It's funny because at this point, we should all be on it. Okay? So, on that note, we're going to go ahead and shut this off. Appreciate y'all for coming out. And just make sure you shared the video. And on that note, I'm out. Peace. If you haven't already done so, though, make sure you subscribe. Okay? Subscribe to the video and share this. You know, subscribe to the channel, share the video. All right? Okay. Islam. Peace and love.